If you've been trying to break into the tech space, then you should know you've been lied to. In this video, I'm going to break down the common lies tech companies are telling you during the hiring process and what you can do to actually uncover the truth and get hired. I'm a VP of sales at a $20 billion software company, and I've done a few hundred interviews over the past few years. And I'm ready to finally expose what big tech doesn't want you to know. The first thing is, hiring for entry-level positions actually requires experience. The best analogy I can give you to this is actually something that happened to me when I took a trip to Italy with my family. I took a flight with my kids and my wife. We went to Italy to visit. Man, we've been preparing and looking up stuff, doing all sorts of research, getting ready for this trip. We finally land in Italy, get settled in our hotel room, and I start looking up reservations for later that week for places to eat. You go to Italy, you want to eat good food. So I start trying to make reservations, and I quickly realize, after making some phone calls and speaking some very bad Italian, that I had to book reservations months in advance at this restaurant in order to eat there. But inside, I'm like, bro, I don't live here. How do you expect me to book months in advance? This is crazy. It's kind of the same thing that's happening right now in tech. So many job postings are saying, we're hiring for entry-level positions. You got to have experience. This is one of the most misleading things that I'm seeing in the tech space, right? You're hiring for an entry-level position, but you won't let me enter without experience. How the heck can I get in? It makes it so much more challenging, and you've probably noticed it. If you've been trying to break into tech, you've probably seen almost every job has hundreds of applicants. And what happens is you're just getting lost in the pile. Half the time, your application isn't even being seen or reviewed by a recruiter. That's the bad news. But the good news is there's something you can do about it. So here's a couple recommendations that I would make. The first one is, let's say you're applying for an engineering job or a cybersecurity job, or maybe even sales, there are certifications and trainings that you can take that at least show that you've done some preliminary training, you have some experience and have learned something about the field. Get it, put it on your LinkedIn, and put the time that you took during the training. Maybe it was like a 6-month course, maybe it was 9 months, however long it was, put that on your resume and on your LinkedIn profile. That shows that you at least have some knowledge, some, let's call it quote unquote, experience in the field. That will give you at least head and shoulders above most of the other applicants that are applying for entry-level positions out there. An even better idea, or something you can do as well as that, is do an internship. In your spare time, like if you've got a job today, or maybe you don't have a job today, do an internship in the meantime until you can land a full-time gig. What this does is, let's say you get an internship at a cybersecurity job or an internship at a sales company. It doesn't matter. But if you're willing to work for free and learn the game, you can now put that experience on your resume, put that experience on your LinkedIn profile, get that company logo up there, because half the time what I've seen happen is you'll see people go through the interview process and you'll say, hey, I like the personality. I think they've done things that are similar to this in another industry, but they just don't have the tech experience. I've seen high quality candidates lose out on jobs, even if they have the skills but don't have the tech experience, miss out on amazing opportunities. So one thing that you can do is, it doesn't matter if you're 23, 33, or 53, I would go ahead and look for internships. You can go and Google this and find internships today. Just you have to swallow your pride and be willing to start from the bottom. If you're wanting to break into tech, this is a great way to get experience while you're job hunting. I highly recommend it, and you can put this on your resume starting yesterday, right? That way you can at least have some experience, and it'll help you break into a lot of these jobs. That'll be the first lie. Like, why are we saying requires experience? It's just the nature of the game. Unfortunately, that's where the tech industry is right now, is because there's a lot less jobs than there once were. Tech companies are now able to hire experienced people for entry-level positions. So what you want to do is set yourself apart, do everything within your power to put some sort of experience on that resume. Point number 2, you can work remote forever. Psych. You guys remember that word, psych? The second thing that I would say tech companies are lying about the most is you can work remote forever and we'll never ask you to come in. They're saying this in their job descriptions, work from remote, 100% full-time remote. That's what you're reading in the job descriptions. But the part that you're not seeing and the part that people aren't really advertising is this. I'll tell you the way a friend broke it down to me one time. They're like, Dwayne, think about it. when it comes time for layoffs, which has been happening, sadly, quite often in the tech industry over the past year and a half or so. In fact, there's been over 125 layoffs just in the first 6 months or so of this year. And my friend told me, hey, Dwayne, considering the climate and what's happening in tech, think about this. Who do you think they're going to fire first? Who do you think is getting laid off first? The person that they see every day when they walk into the office, right? They chat it up. Maybe they have a cup of coffee together. That person, or the person that's at home working in their underwear and they have to just assume they're actually productive. The reality and the cold truth is, when it comes time to this, the remote workers are the first to go, because it's so much harder to lay off somebody that you have to see and look them in the face every single day, and you actually build connections and build relationships with. It's much easier to let go of people you don't really have to look at in the eye, people that you don't actually have a real, genuine connection with. So maybe you're reading a job posting from a big tech company that says 100% remote. The reality is, yeah, maybe it is remote for now, until things get tough. We've seen at Twitter, we've seen at Apple, we've seen at Facebook, they were all advertising 100% fully remote jobs. Until one day, someone came in and said, that's over. You now have to come back into the office. And a lot of people lost their jobs as a result because they weren't willing to come back into the office. So if you're trying to break into the tech space, something that I'd recommend, and this is, I recognize that this is quite a polarizing topic. I understand that everybody can't move and doesn't have that flexibility, but I got to tell you how it is. You want to be careful, because a lot of these tech companies, unless you're a stellar performer, in fact, I go as far as to say as remote work is only for the most elite performers. Because if you're really, really good at your job, no one's touching you, especially if you bring in revenue. Like if you're in the go-to-market organization. But if you're really, really good at your job, it'll be hard to let you go. But if you're brand new and the company experiences some sort of downturn and you're remote, that's a scary, scary position to be in if you think about it. Like if the company's going through a tougher time and you're remote, you're just starting, you haven't even had the opportunity to make a name for yourself, man, that's a scary position to be in. And unfortunately, you're probably going to be one of the first people they look at on the balance sheet to see where they can save money. So maybe the application said 100% remote. Just know that many times this changes. That's what history's taught us, is most companies are asking people to come back into office. So maybe it says 100% for now, but be prepared. And maybe something that you could do to stand out and set yourself apart is, hey, I'm willing to show up in person. I'm actually willing to go into the office. I know it says fully remote. I'd love to. Look for jobs within driving distance. See what you can do. Meet people in person and you'll stand out. There's so many people out there looking for jobs in tech, and because there's so many remote jobs, understand that you're going to attract hundreds and hundreds of applicants from all over the world and all over the country, because you don't have to specify by region, right? It used to be when jobs went out there and a job posting went up, only people within driving distance and lived in that community would apply. But now, because of remote work, even though maybe I live in Miami, if I was looking for a job, I could apply to a job in Montana if I felt like it, if it was fully remote. So it makes it a lot more competitive. So one thing you can do to shorten the length of time to getting hired, be willing to come in office and actually express the fact that, hey, I'm willing to put in the work and come into office and learn. One of the best advantages to starting off in person in an office is the connections that you can make and how much faster you learn, instead of hoping somebody responds to one of your Slack messages or Teams messages when you have a question. That's my 2 cents. Leave me a comment. I'm curious to know what your thoughts are on that. But I can tell you, in my own experience, usually the 100% remote for everything is a flat out lie. And unfortunately, people like us usually end up paying the price. The third thing that I would say is a lie, or at the very least, extremely misleading, is this whole concept of unlimited PTO. And I think the best way for me to explain this to you is by a story. So there was a girl that I worked with, and, she would take vacations here and then, and eventually, no one knew that, but I guess HR or somebody ran a report and found out, hey, yeah, she does go on vacation every while, but they looked at the actual numbers. She had taken off more than 3 months out of the calendar year. So 3 months. Meanwhile, it was unlimited PTO, so she's well within her rights. But 3 months she had taken off. You can imagine the utter shock among the executives when they found this out. Now, even though the contract, even though everything she read about the job said unlimited PTO, how do you think they responded to that? Without going into too much detail, it's safe to say that that wasn't her greatest moment when everyone found out and addressed that with her. In fact, eventually the company ended up removing the unlimited PTO policy right after that. Unlimited PTO sounds great when recruiting. Unlimited PTO sounds amazing. You can take as much time off as you want and we don't care. But I think when you really think about it, it's pretty obvious. Like, everything has its limits. Nothing's actually unlimited. Maybe it's undefined PTO, but unlimited PTO is just a flat out lie. If you take off 9 months out of a 12-month year, you're probably not going to be employed very long. In fact, I go as far as to say unlimited PTO is a well-designed trap. Remember this, unless you're working for a nonprofit, every startup company or every tech company is in business for one reason, and it's to make money. They're not in business for charity. They're in it for profit. So one of the things that I would recognize, don't fall into the trap of making your decision about where you apply to based on unlimited PTO, because you'll quickly find that it's actually limited. And those who exercise the whole unlimited thing aren't employed for very long, or they're reprimanded and their growth is stunted forever because they now no longer trust the person who took off 3 months out of the year. That's a story for you, but it's a real thing, man. Don't fall in the trap. It sounds great on paper, but it's just not the reality. The fourth lie that I see the most in the tech industry is promise for higher pay that comes with a caveat. It's extremely misleading. So what I've seen happen so many times, I've seen so many people, I can give you one story in particular. I had a good friend of mine actually referred to my company, and he was doing amazing. He was absolutely crushing it until one day a small startup company, it recruited him. They've been recruited, started sending him messages to say, hey, you know what? We're going to give you like a $50,000 increase on your base salary compared to what you're making right now. That's a huge temptation, right? It's like Temptation Island. There's only so many things that you can withstand in terms of temptation and money, right? So what he did, he was like, you know what? I love my job, but you know what? $50,000, I can't turn that down. Here's the reality. Smaller companies promising a higher salary, understand it comes with a major caveat. If you don't perform to the level where they're getting some major ROI on that increase in pay, you're not going to be around for very long. In fact, after all this, my friend, let's just say it didn't last. He felt completely misled and lied to after the fact. And then when he tried to come back to our company, they wouldn't let him come back because he ditched us in a time we needed him. So understand, if you're ever getting a promise for higher salary and huge pay increase, make sure you dig into it. If it's a small startup company that you really don't have a ton of history on, they don't have any sort of longevity, you can't see the growth over the past 7-10 years, just be very, very careful and at least understand the risk that you're getting yourself into. I can think of at least 4 or 5 stories just like that one that I've seen personally over the past 5 years. So when you finally break into tech or you finally got a job, don't hop to another job for a promise of a higher salary, or you can find yourself left out in the cold. And you absolutely don't want that to happen, because it's extremely misleading. Yeah, we're going to promise you this high salary, but you know what? If you can't crush it very quickly, we're going to let you go and ruin your career. I find that extremely misleading, and it's a flat out lie. If you're going to invest that much into somebody, you got to at least give them an opportunity to step up and crush it at the job. Understanding these truths will help you understand the inner workings of tech hiring. However, there's one job in particular that I've seen transform people's lives completely. In fact, I've seen people go from making like $45,000 a year to making well over $100,000 in an entry-level position. I'm going to be making a video about what this job is and how it transforms people's lives. So if you like this video and it was helpful, go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel so you make sure you don't miss out on the next video.